There is something deeply wrong with the way modern humans respond to crisis. Not wrong in the sense of moral failure, wrong in the sense of engineering failure. The machinery is broken. The system that should activate when pressure arrives, the mental architecture that turns a human being into something unshakable, has been systematically dismantled, and most people have no idea it ever existed. In 480 BC, at the narrow coastal pass of Thermopylae in central Greece, 300 Spartan soldiers held the entire Persian army, estimated at over 100,000 men, for 3 days. They were outnumbered 300 to 1. They knew, before the first spear was thrown, that they would not leave that pass alive. They went anyway. Not out of recklessness, not out of fanaticism. They went with complete calm, because they had spent their entire lives being forged into men who had already made peace with the worst possible outcome before it arrived. Your grandfather survived a world war, raised 5 children on a factory worker's wage, buried friends, lost everything twice, and never once called it a trauma response. Today, 1 in 3 adults reports clinical anxiety. Burnout has been declared a global health crisis by the World Health Organization. Antidepressant prescriptions in the United States have increased by over 400% since 1990. So what the hell changed? The answer is not that you are weak. The answer is that the ancient operating system for the human mind, the one the Spartans spent 3 centuries refining into something so precise, so brutal, and so effective that military psychologists are still studying it today, has been completely erased from the way we raise, educate, and prepare modern human beings. Before we go further, keep this question in mind as we go. What is the one situation in your life right now where fear is making your decisions instead of you? Drop it in the comments. Because what you are about to learn does not just explain the Spartans. It will permanently change how you see every crisis you will ever face. Pick up the modern blueprint for raising a human being and look for what it says about adversity. You will not find the word. You will find resilience as a therapy concept. You will find mindfulness apps. You will find entire institutions dedicated to protecting young people from discomfort. Since 1990, anxiety disorders among adults in Western nations have doubled. Among people under 35, tripled. 1 in 5 American adults is currently taking a psychiatric medication. These are not biologically defective people. These are people who were never taught what to do with pressure. The comfort and pharmaceutical industry does not profit from your mental resilience. It profits from your fragility. Every time you reach for something to make a feeling stop, something a Spartan child was taught to sit inside and learn from, someone records it as revenue. The Spartans had a different diagnosis for what we now call anxiety. They called it Phobos, the spirit of fear and panic, named after the son of Ares. But unlike the modern medical model, which treats Phobos as a pathology to be suppressed, the Spartans treated it as a training target. Fear was not the enemy. Untrained fear was the enemy. And the difference between those two things is the entire distance between a person who collapses under pressure and a person who becomes more precise because of it. If you are finding this video helpful, do well to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. To understand how the Spartan mind was built, we have to go back to the beginning. Not to the battlefield, but to the nursery. At birth, every Spartan infant was examined by a council of elders. Weakness was not accommodated. This was a civilization that had made one foundational decision. The highest purpose of a Spartan life was the capacity to protect Sparta. Everything else was secondary. That single decision shaped everything that followed. At age 7, every Spartan male entered the Agoge, a state-run training system with no equivalent anywhere else in the ancient world. The word means the raising up. It was not a military school. It was a systematic reconstruction of the human psyche. Inside the Agoge, Spartan boys were given a single wool cloak, one for all seasons. They slept on beds of reeds. They were required to gather themselves from the Eurotas River. They were deliberately underfed, not to be cruel, but to train the response to hunger. They were expected to supplement their food by stealing from the surrounding farms. If they were caught, they were beaten. Not for stealing, for getting caught. The lesson was precise. The failure was in the lack of skill, awareness, and discipline, not in the hunger. The Agoge produced what the Spartans called phronesis, practical wisdom, combined with sophrosine, the capacity for measured self-control under extreme provocation. These were not abstract philosophical virtues. They were measurable behavioral outcomes. An elder could stand in front of a 15-year-old Spartan boy, insult him, challenge him, and attempt to provoke a reaction. If the boy broke, if he shouted, flinched, or lost composure, he failed. And failure in the Agoge had consequences that modern education has no parallel for. By the time a Spartan reached the age of 18 and entered the Krypteia, a brutal year-long solo wilderness survival test, he had already spent 11 years being systematically exposed to hunger, cold, pain, social pressure, fear, exhaustion, and public failure. Not to traumatize him, to inoculate him, to build, through controlled and repeated exposure, a nervous system that had learned at the cellular level that discomfort was survivable, that fear was information, that the worst had already arrived and he was still standing. The Stoic philosophy that would later emerge in Greece, formalized by Zeno of Citium around 300 BC and carried forward by Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, was not invented in a vacuum. It was the philosophical articulation of what Sparta had been practicing as a survival technology for 300 years. The Stoics did not create the idea of separating what you can control from what you cannot. The Spartans lived it. The Stoics gave it language. Modern neuroscience has spent 3 decades catching up to what the Spartans engineered by instinct. Research from the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center, replicated at Stanford and UC Berkeley, confirms what the Agoge demonstrated empirically. Controlled, graduated exposure to stress does not damage the human nervous system. It restructures it. When a threat is perceived, the amygdala fires, flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. In an untrained nervous system, this overwhelms the prefrontal cortex. The person freezes, panics, or shuts down. This is not weakness. It is an untrained default. But in a nervous system repeatedly exposed to stress and repeatedly survived intact, the response is calibrated differently. The prefrontal cortex holds. Decision-making stays available. The person does not stop feeling fear. They process it faster and respond more precisely. A 2018 study in the Journal of Neuroscience found that subjects with graduated stress exposure showed measurably greater prefrontal cortex activity during high-pressure simulations, meaning rational thought increased, not decreased, when the crisis arrived. The Spartans had been producing this outcome for 3 centuries before anyone understood the biology behind it. The most rigorous modern validation of the Spartan method is not academic. It is operational. In the 1990s, military psychologists studying Navy SEALs BUD training discovered something unexpected. Candidates with higher physical fitness scores were quitting at the same rate as those with lower scores. Physical capacity was not the deciding variable. What separated those who finished was a single measurable trait: tolerance for psychological discomfort, not pain tolerance, not endurance. The capacity to remain cognitively functional, making decisions, maintaining awareness, while the body and mind were screaming to stop. This is precisely what the Agoge built for 300 years, in boys who started at 7. In 2009, the United States Army adopted Master Resilience Training, developed with the University of Pennsylvania, as mandatory for all soldiers. Its core finding: resilience is not a personality trait. It is a learned skill, built through deliberate practice under graduated stress. It is a modern institutional attempt to reconstruct the first principles of the Spartan Agoge without using that name. The dismantling happened gradually, through decisions that each seemed reasonable in isolation and catastrophic in accumulation. After World War II, the generation that had survived the Depression and fought across 2 continents decided, with genuine love, that their children would not suffer the way they had. Hardship was the enemy. Comfort was the inheritance. The purpose of prosperity was to insulate the next generation from the very experiences that had forged the previous one. The Spartan understanding that controlled adversity is how a nervous system develops its full capacity was not argued against. It was simply forgotten. Each generation raised softer produced the next one softer still. The comfort industry did not cause this collapse, but it recognized it immediately and built a trillion-dollar architecture around it. A human being who has never been taught to sit inside discomfort is not a citizen. They are a customer. Every unmanaged feeling is a revenue opportunity. The system did not bury the Spartan method because it was wrong. It buried it because a population trained by the Agoge would be extraordinarily difficult to sell things to. The Agoge is gone, but the principles it operated on are fully documented, validated by modern neuroscience, and available to anyone willing to apply them seriously. First, practice voluntary discomfort every single day. Every morning, before any comfort enters your day, before coffee, before the phone, before anything easy, choose one hard thing and do it. Cold shower, difficult conversation, physical training in conditions you would normally avoid. The sequence is everything. Hardship first, comfort second. Do this for 30 consecutive days, and your stress response will begin to calibrate differently. Not because of willpower, because of neuroscience. Second, practice the stoic separation before crisis arrives, not during it. Every evening, write down what is currently creating pressure in your life. Divide it into 2 columns, within my control and outside it. Act only on the first, release the second entirely. The Spartans did not develop clarity on the battlefield. They arrived with it already built. This exercise is how you build it. Third, walk toward the thing you have been avoiding. Every situation you are currently avoiding is a training ground you are refusing to enter. Identify the one thing you have been most consistently avoiding. This week, step toward it, not to solve it, to prove to your nervous system that proximity does not destroy you. That is how inoculation works. That is how it has always worked. If this opens something in you, if you can feel the distance between who you are now and who this system would build you into, subscribe. We are rebuilding the lost knowledge of history's most formidable minds, one forgotten system at a time. The Spartan warrior was not born with courage. He was built with it. Through a system so deliberate, so methodical, and so ruthlessly effective that the most elite military organizations on Earth are still reverse engineering it 2,500 years later. They did not die at Thermopylae because they were ordered to. They died because they were incapable of choosing otherwise, not because of fanaticism, because of training. Because the Agoge had built, inside each of them, a mind that processed crisis not as a reason to collapse, but as the exact condition they had been constructed for. We abandoned that system for comfort. We replaced the Agoge with entertainment. We traded stoic practice for pharmaceutical management. And when the real crises arrive, and they always arrive, we call it a breakdown. The Spartan would not have called it a breakdown. He would have called it the moment the training begins to matter. The secret was never lost. It was just buried, under comfort, under convenience, under a system that profits from your inability to manage pressure without external help. Every time you choose the hard thing, every time you walk toward instead of away, every time you sit inside a fear and let it inform you instead of control you, You are not learning something new. You are remembering something ancient, something that kept 300 men standing at the end of the world, calm as stone, waiting for what was coming, because they had already made peace with it. If you enjoy this video, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe.